What if someone feels like they're not ready to pursue the film business?
Look, I mean, you hopefully know yourself better than anybody else. I mean, if you haven't had enough, if you haven't studied it enough, if you haven't, it depends on what you want to do. If you're a producer, work for another producer, become an assistant, right? If you want to do development, for example, if you want to be an actor, well, you need to take probably a lot of classes and be confident that you can, hit the marks, do this, do that, or whatever. You need to get in a space where you're comfortable and confident enough to be able to do whatever job it is you want to do in this industry. And I think a lot of that comes from doing and learning. I mean, you may need to work as a PA or whatever. Like, look, if you want to learn all the jobs in production, working at a PA is a great job. You don't get paid anything, but you get to see and learn a lot of things. And if you're on certain productions, if you take interest in certain things, people may take interest in you. And, you may become, oh, wow, I'm interested in sound. Well, come here, learn how this works. And they'll help you out. And then, hey, I need an assistant next time. Why don't you, you'll be the boom guy. And then you go and you do that. You can wear a lot of different hats being a PA, and you can learn and kind of figure out maybe what, who your tribe is, if that makes sense.
Even extra work, and you get fed and you get paid
in
a week or whatever
you
it
can
is.
see how it works
Right.
and understand it. I mean, there's lots of ways to learn and get paid a little bit at least,
How does a filmmaker know they have something to offer, a story worth telling?
That's a great question. I always like to say if it's original, that's one thing. If it's something you haven't seen in a long time, that's another thing too. I think that you learn if it's original by watching, by learning and reading and watching a lot of different movies to understand the landscape or the genre even, let's say, for example, of what you're trying to do. I think that if it's not just watching the films, it's reading. It's understanding story. It's understanding what other stories are out there like this. Is there a book that's exactly like this, what I'm trying to write right here? Is there another movie that premiered at Sundance that was about a guy living in an iron lung or something like this? Whatever you're trying to do, there might be something similar to it. So check beforehand, make sure it's somewhat original. And then ask yourself if there's an audience for this. Should this movie be made? Is there an audience for this? Who's going to watch this film? Who's going to pay to see this film, right? Because people want their money back at the end of the day. You can only do so much with investors. You get one chance with certain investors. You never make that money back, you might not get a second chance.
What if the story is about the writer, director, producer, and it's their story, and they're just convinced everyone wants to see it? People may want to see that, but is there a delusion sometimes when people have their own story?
I think there's absolutely a delusion. I think, unfortunately, people are very, they're very, what's the word? They really do believe that their story is the most important story ever told, probably, right? And it's the most interesting story ever told. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just not. I think that you have to have other people that, that's what producers do. Producers will read your script and tell you, oh, listen, I think that there is something here. So there's other people's opinions that sort of matter. I don't think it's just in a vacuum, a writer-director coming up with something that's just going to be brilliant. I think there's always people that are going to help that project along and actually even tell you, look, I'm encyclopedic with my knowledge of horror, for example. I can tell you that movie, I've seen it 10 years ago and it wasn't done very well then, so this movie may actually work. Or there's a movie that came out just like it, last year, and it was done really well, I had a couple friends that had this has been the year of cannibalism for some reason, right? And for years past, there was no cannibalism movies, right? And all of a sudden this year, there's 4 different ones that are actually mainstream films that hit whatever. These poor guys are just pulling their hair out because they're just we thought we were making something new and did just luck of the draw, I guess, just so happens. But I guess the question, was, what was the question? It was how do I tell something's original? Sorry.
Oh no, how does the filmmaker know they have something worth telling? I mean, because you love The Fabelmans, but that's because Steven Spielberg has this long, fascinating story and a track record.
Yeah.
Or Sam Mendes, he did Empire of Light as sort of an ode to his life as well. But these are people that have already been out there. When there's someone that's just the writer, director, producer, and it's their first one, and it's about them. how does someone know that it's worth telling?
Look, I think that you have a team around you that, in addition to yourself, you should have some experienced people around you to say, yeah, listen, I haven't seen that before. Or yes, I can see how this could be a very niche thing and we could probably get into Sundance, or we could get into someplace like this and get you awareness. And awareness is key, because even like on this very personal story, you still have to sell it and actually make money off of it. And like, how are they gonna do this? There are so many movies that play at Sundance now that A, don't get sold, and B, like, even if they did get sold to somebody at Sundance, they scratch their heads as to how they're gonna market this film, and it comes out in 2 theaters and then dies a slow death someplace and you never hear about it again. And that goes back to the idea of like, how are we gonna market this film and who is this movie for, right? Again, I think that the answer to the question is, I think if you surround yourself with enough people who are experienced people, they can kind of help and guide you to kind of maybe let you know whether this is something that should be made or not, or even like this is something we have seen or not seen, or do we think it's marketable in some way to somebody, right? I think that's the answer to the question. You should try to get advice and surround yourself with people. The more you can, mentors, what have you, that can probably kind of maybe guide.
And is that also because maybe there's a curse with Sundance, because these are all auteurs, these are all people that love cinema, but whereas what's really going to sell is Middle America, where maybe people won't want to see these art house films, or maybe they will.
I mean, look, even in the horror community, we had our 1BR film debuted at Fantasia, which is like arguably like there's 2 huge genre festivals in the world, and one of them is that, and the other one's Sitges in Spain, and we got pulled aside. We didn't win anything. We got pulled aside by one of the judges, and she's like, listen, you didn't win anything, but I'm gonna tell you, I think you're gonna be the most successful movie out of here this particular year, because there is something that's very mainstream about the film. And I think that people are gonna wanna see it. And true enough, between like ourselves and this other movie, The Wretched and Swallow, we were probably the top 3 films in terms of how we produced in the actual marketplace. So even though we weren't the artsiest or most original in some way, we still were able to do something in an interesting regard.
Where does your confidence come from, Alok?
I think I'm just old. I mean, I just turned 50 this year, and I think I've seen a lot of shit. And I think the other part of it is that I just don't care anymore. Like, I mean, like, I care, and I'm strategic and political, right? But at a certain point, with age, I've become less fearful, right? And once I figured out that, like, we did one movie, and I have contemporaries, and you become friends with other filmmakers, and you see they're doing it, and how they did this, and we can do this. And you get confidence from meeting other filmmakers and having made at least one film, to the point where you don't feel fearful about. You don't have as much fear as you usually had when you had made a film. When you made one, at least it's under your belt, you can kind of move on to other things. But I hope that answered the question. I guess going back to it, I think mine is I'm a fairly confident person, but I've been more fearful in life. But now I'm less fearful with age, I guess to say, if that makes sense.
What was the fear about? Was it that you didn't want to come out a failure or disappoint someone?
Sure. I mean, I think that's universal with anyone. I mean, I think that, I'm not saying I'm high functioning or something like that. I'm a normal person, but I think that, like, I'm a very prideful person in certain regards too. And, like, I tested movies for 18 years. I'm gonna make a piece of crap movie, like that would kill me. That would kill me that, like, I had done that on a personal level. Like, you've been able to help other people with their films, you can't help yourself with your own film, that kind of thing. So there is sort of a sense of pride and pride based off prior career, let's call it, that's in the mix. But, like, look, I mean, I think the other part of it is that, we all have something holding us back. I mean, sometimes we hold ourselves back. Like, oh, this script isn't good enough, or this money is not enough money, right? Whereas if you just went out there and jumped in the pool, you'd be much better off. You'd learn how to swim a lot faster, rather than sitting on the side of the pool and, like, waiting for, is this the right time I should jump? Should I do it now? Should I do it? Just jump in. That's what I would tell you.